All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending the May issue of the OCA Project Governing Board. We've got a fairly lightweight agenda here. I think a lot of us are just in still a little bit of recovery mode from last week at RSA. So I'm going to give a brief recap of that for folks who didn't attend and some of the statistics that we have. Going to see, I'm glad that David was able to make it today. See if we have any update on the OXA project, and I will give a brief status update on spider risk, and then we'll, open it up to any other items on the floor as needed. Just before I get started, wanted to welcome couple of folks here, I believe for the first time. I don't know if, after I say your name, if you want to give like a 5-second introduction to folks who might not know you or whatever. So Alan, did you want to introduce yourself to the PGB?
Sure enough. Alan Konar, I work at That Dot. We have a streaming graph processor. My background is security for the past 25 years. I've done pen testing. I've designed voice over IP security systems. I've pretty much anything you can imagine. I've been involved with, and so this was really fascinating for me. The whole move to try and automate threat hunting and frankly make people's lives easier, because that's been the promise every hype cycle, and that leads into the next hype cycle, and having an industry org actually tackle it seems like the right way to go.
Fantastic. No, it's great to have That Dot as a member, and thanks for joining here, Alan. I know, David, we mentioned that this might have been your second meeting, but, I'm not sure if everybody here was at the last one. Did you want to give a brief introduction to yourself and Sequoia?
Yes, sure, no problem. So I'm David Bizarre. Nice to meet you for all of you. I work as a Chief Scientific Officer at Sequoia.io. I'm also co-founder of the company. Basically, we are a SOC platform, so we intend, let's say, to pilot different components in terms of cybersecurity operations, and we want to have an impact in this field. And the way to have an impact for us is about leveraging norms and standards. And we really had in mind that using what already exists and done by Oasis would be a very interesting options by creating some, let's say, libraries, tools, mappers that could be leveraged or bring forward by OCA into, let's say, associated with a specific project. And the name of the project is OCA, Open XDR Architecture. Would be a very smart way, let's say, to propose something new on the market. And this is what we try to do. And we were very happy last week, let's say, to have the opportunity to speak about that at RSA. So thank you for all of you who followed us to do that.
Fantastic. Thanks, David. And I see we've got Oliver here as well. Oliver, I don't, is Tenzir looking at rejoining the PGB, or I wasn't aware of that.
No, not that I'm aware of. I still had the invite in, so I didn't know if that was on purpose or not.
Oh, okay. We'll look into that. I mean, you're free to remain and listen, Oliver, no problem at all. I was just
Oh, if we're not in it, I'm happy to go, right? I just so that's fine for all good.
No, it's happy to have you. No, it's not really an issue. We record everything and post it on YouTube anyway. So
Cool.
if you want to listen in, no problem.
Okay,
Yeah. So I had just a couple of items to go over here. So the first is, I think everyone was on the call, but in case you weren't, we do have the numbers from the RSA breakfast. We had 84 attendees out of the 149 confirmed. So first of all, that's a fantastic ratio even by itself. So well over half showed up, which is good for any event like this. And 84 attendees who I think, my own opinion. So Duncan was there as well. I'll hand the mic to him for his opinion in a second, and I know Rose was there too. I think it was a fabulous event. People were very engaged. It wasn't just about showing up for some nice waffles, although they were very good waffles. Was obviously not why people were there. And we gave a really solid presentation on the projects that we have going on, and thanks to Duncan for that. And, also thank you to Fabian from David's team for the presentation he did on OXA. I think it was very well received after the event. So after the speech, I had multiple people. There was a line of people to talk to me at that breakfast about the OCA. And, I believe, we had multiple conversations with companies even about sponsorship. So I think that we have 2 or 3 very solid prospects for new sponsors come out of that as well. So I think it was fantastic, raised awareness of all the good work we're doing here. So Duncan, I don't know if you wanted to give like 5-10 seconds of what you thought, how you think it went.
Yeah, so ditto a lot of what Jason said, but also including thank you, Jason, for his presentations as well, because he emceed and also spoke very well. And just like Jason, we literally got kicked out of the room by the people who run the place, because it was like a half hour later and there were still people waiting in line to talk to us, and they made us move out into the lobby and get out of the room so they could prep it for the other people. So yes, it was quite engaging. There was quite a lot of interest. And the 84 number is particularly impressive because there were 2 really important other events going on literally at the same time. There was a quantum breakfast for something, and I forget what the other one was, but there were like all sorts of people who the rest of the thing, apologized to me for not being there because they were at, one of the other 2. And I actually recall that, from my own agenda, I would have went to either of the other 2 if I wasn't obviously I went to this one, but I was like, I would have wished I could have went to one of the other, or both of the other 2. So it was, it is RSA. There's a lot going on. The fact that we got that many people and a lot of new people, people we hadn't met before and stuff. So it was really great. Back to you, Jason.
No, it was fantastic. And yeah, I also, did make some connections with some some other folks who are on the PGB who aren't always here on these calls. And, I think we're going to repair some of those relationships as well. So, overall, really good event. I have, I think we've got positive momentum, good expectations coming out of it. So now we're going to just have to figure out how to capitalize on that. So that was the RSA wrap up. Any questions before we move on? Any questions from anybody else on the call?
No, this is Jane here. Just I joined just to make sure you didn't have any questions about what took place and all that. To your momentum point, Jason, there are 2 things that I want to put on the PGB's radar. One being, we do have a booth space at Black Hat this year, so that's next in line. We have to think about and be creative about what we want to do there. And then also we have Borderless Cyber that's taking place just outside of London. So the call for presentations is open. So we welcome, you to circulate that info to your communities or submit or whatever. If you have any questions, by all means, come on back to me and I'll be happy to answer any of them. But I wanted to make sure that you knew those two events are on the horizon for OCA.
No, good point, Jane. And yeah, strongly encourage everyone to go check out the Borderless Cyber website and material. For if you haven't seen it, I think it was posted in the OCA Slack channels, but we can resurface it again. It's focused on the intersection of security and privacy. So topics on both security and privacy, and even more ideally, things that intersect the 2 are what's going to be on the agenda. Oh, I see Duncan just posted the link. Thanks, Duncan. Yeah, and the Black Hat booth, Jane, I think we're going to have to kind of figure that out, right? Like, I don't even know what the rules are for what can and can't be done. I know there's certain rules about you know, whether or not you can show what you can show and not show for these types of booths. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we could be creative, so I know how to work the magic on that. So we'll make sure we get some exposure for the individual companies plus the work. I think we should go and maybe have like some type of demonstration in that booth. We'll talk about what that looks like. We could also do, you know, some sort of game where I'm assuming some of our members will have booths on the show floor where it will, you know, send folks to those booths. So we could get creative about how this all can work. So.
All right. All right, any other questions for Jane?
Well, somewhat related on a Jane event, particularly if I don't know if she's going to stay for the whole call or not. I do have a sort of RSA related, sort of CASP related, sort of Borderless Cyber, and sort of SPAMorama related. So I don't know what the right point. And Jane, are you staying on? I was going to bring it up under new business at the end, but
Yeah, I'll stay on.
okay. So I'll at whatever point in the agenda you want me to get into CASP and related events, let me know, Jason.
All right, well, now I'm very intrigued. Okay, well, the two other topics, the only two other topics I wanted to cover today, and I'm glad David is here. I was just going to inquire about, you know, status of the OXA project and, you know, repos and, you know, what if anything, needs to be done there to get the ball rolling a little bit on that project.
Thank you, Jason. So Claudia has just activated most of, well, I think all of the, let's say, operational capabilities last week, I think, for us on OXA. So we have the GitHub access, we have a Slack channel, we have a mailing list. To be honest, I did not take the time, let's say, to start and engage the community, for instance, to post the first message on the Slack channel. So I need to do that. I need, let's say, to configure some of them. So to make a short, let's say, to place a small icon on the Slack channel, for instance. So I need to do that. I promised Claudia I would do that as soon as possible. So I hope next week I will start on that to launch the first communications. On my side, I exchanged with the Elastic CTO. I talk about OXA. I have, let's say, a meeting with someone from AWS next month who seems interested into OXA too. So of course, the goal is to explain what intends to do, what OXA intends to deliver, and to get their commitment, engagement about that. I don't know if they are interested into becoming a sponsor later. If you want me, let's say, to forward some interest about that, I do that. I don't know. I don't know what's the process.
Very interested in the AWS. I'd be curious about who you're talking to there, because, you know, there might be some ways I can help you with that as well. We have a lot of work going on with AWS, and I also work with folks at AWS and OCSF, which I know you have as part of OXA. So, you know, these are all related conversations. So that could be interesting. I think part of this too is, and I know you're just getting started, David, so don't take, I think what we need is in the repo, like the README, like if we can have a README about the project that we can then start sharing, right? Because once we have a material, you know, that, you know, folks like Duncan, myself, and others, we can post it on LinkedIn and try to bring in, you know, some interests that way. The material just to explain a single pager about what the project is. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
I think Claudia, you had a question, I think.
Just a comment. I didn't announce that everything is set up yet because I was waiting for David to actually add something to the repository first, and at least the README and maybe some basic information. So then we can send people to it. Currently, it's just templates and yeah, and the Slack channel is already there. The mailing list is there, but I was waiting so that we have a bit more content, maybe information for people to send them to those assets. That's
Claudia,
all I wanted to say. Sorry.
if you agree with that, I propose that I give you the precise moment at which I think, let's say, there is enough content available on the GitHub repository, so that you can engage the official launch. I don't know what the term for that.
Yeah, I mean, as Jason just said, OCA also has a LinkedIn page, and we have a Twitter account. And my colleague Mary Beth, who does our marketing for our projects, can then also post about the new project, right? So that we can make some noise about it.
And I promise I will give you the go as soon as we're ready, and I will work on that next week.
Awesome. And once you have enough interest and want to have the first meeting, we can talk more about some logistics. But yeah.
Yeah, I will need some help when
Of
we
course.
talk about this first meeting.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Thank you. And Duncan?
Yeah, I was going to say, because partly it's just from personal preference. I'm not a Slack person, so I get on it when I have to. So if there is stuff and it only occurs on Slack, I want to make sure stuff somehow gets out elsewhere also, like on the GitHub or ideally in meetings. I know some OCA projects like work strictly by GitHub and Slack, and some work with meetings. Personally, I'm more of a meeting person. Much as I hate meetings, it's the only thing that forces me to actually spend the time. Plus, I like the human interaction part of it. I get more out of it. If the intent is for it to only be Slack and GitHub, then I would want something, or actually I'll say either way. I think there should be eventually, not day one, something in the project on how it's governed, how you're going to decide what gets accepted and what isn't. It isn't like everyone's saying, oh, David, go do this, David, go do this. It's supposed to be an open to everybody community, which means you don't have to do all the work. In fact, you shouldn't do all the work. I mean, let's be fair, to begin with, you're going to have to do all the work. but so you're going to have to sort of jumpstart it. But if we could set it up so that others can contribute and we can suck other people in, I think it would be good. I am a bit of a pain on the governance stuff, as anyone in any of the other projects will tell you. I do want to make sure we do make it open to all, that everybody who at least wants to have a say can have a say, that's allowed to have a say, you know, that whole, by whatever governance we pick. But it isn't, I'm particularly sensitive to OCA sort of started under a little bit of a cloud of, hey, that's just a corporate, thing. And I want it to be, no, it's an Oasis thing. Oasis thing is open to everybody. And yeah, if you don't bother playing, that's your problem, but at least allow them to play. And so we sort of gain, we both gain more help that way. We also sort of, don't do this. Oh, that's just their company making that sub project or whatever. No, we're all working together on all this. So, so it does mean you're going to have to do some kickstarting, and kind of just, take the charters. There was a thing you already circulated that we already voted on. Literally just steal that text and stick it in the README somewhere, stuff like that. But do set up some sort of meeting cadence or some sort of say, hey, get a hold of start the mailing, it's got its own mailing list, which I know I'll have to go join because I just now I'm realizing set up. Give it a little time to get people set up or whatever, and then put out a doodle poll and pick a time and at least get an initial meeting, because we're, for lack of a term, putting you in charge of it, but it really should be the group of whoever needs to work on this will decide on its governance and how to put inside. And on a related note, now that it is an official sub project, the sub-project collectively, which right now consists of you, but hopefully will consist of more as we get it booted, we'll need to pick a TSC representative. We would like the project to be part of the technical steering committee of the of the OCA, which determines some of the, how GitHub works and all that kind of stuff. So, and it could use, an extra person because, hey, there's an extra project. So just that to, so we have somebody to liaison with and stuff like that. Over.
And Claudia?
Just to add two things to that. One, you can ask me for help with any of these things. I mean, I've mentioned this before, but please do. And then secondly, to Duncan's point on openness, and I wouldn't be an Oasis employee if I would not mention this. So anytime you make official decisions, if this project goes on to create a work product, every decision has to be recorded in writing and also be published on the mailing list. So anything, so we use Slack, and maybe this is just, you're all aware of that, but I just want to mention that Slack is only for just like brief discussions, but everything that is related to decisions that everyone should know about, Slack is not relevant there. just as a side note.
I completely assume that I will be a full newbie in this, let's say, governance field and the way it's used to work in OCA. So of course I will ask you for help, for your advice, what you know in terms of best practices coming from other successful projects. So I will ask you for that, let's say at least for the first month, so that I can, let's say, to use the most official process tools that you already know.
Yeah, I mean, the rule of thumb is basically decisions need to be recorded, and the system of record is the mailing list or an official PGB call if we have quorum, right? That's the rule of thumb. Decisions, quote unquote, decisions don't get made on Slack. And you might, there might be consensus reached on Slack. That's okay. Not everything, the OCA operates mostly on consensus, and that's in our governance, right? There's certain decisions that can't be made via consensus, and they have to have official tracking. So
sure. That makes sense.
All right. So that was OXA. So the only other thing that I wanted to cover on the agenda, and then I'll hand it to Duncan for his other business, is I just wanted to give a quick update on spider risk. So, and the ballot, I believe, has been opened now. So I wanted to just kind of surface that for awareness. So you're going to see, if you haven't seen it yet in your inbox, you're going to see a ballot be opened to approve the spider risk project, which we presented at the meeting last week. If you look at this ballot and you're like, I have no idea what this is, we can definitely arrange a separate session to go over it, explain to you what it is. Essentially, it's a project donated from the University of Southampton for a threat modeling tool that's very interesting and exciting, and they're going to come in. They will, like we do with most projects, they would be the initial folks to bootstrap it, get it off the ground, and get others in. So I wanted to give an update on where that stands. So first of all, we have the ballot if we want to onboard it or not, but at the same time, we're working through the trademark and IP issues that Duncan actually raised last month to make sure that we covered, right? So those are being worked through right now with Oasis Legal Counsel. And we have every confidence that we're going to get to the end of it. There are no showstoppers there at all. So the University Legal Counsel and Oasis are working together to make sure that all the right, I's are dotted and T's crossed when it comes to the trademark and IP provisions around this project. So it was determined by both Chet and Jamie, there is no reason we shouldn't go ahead with the vote. So we're going ahead with the vote in tandem to that process with the hopes that, we can kind of do it all at the same time. And I see Duncan's got his hand up. Duncan, do you have a question?
Well, yeah, I put my hand up. You quasi answered it, but I still have a follow-on question to it, which was, did we settle the IP issue? And the answer sounds like no, but we expect to, so it won't be an issue. But what happened? I mean, we'll
Yes.
cross the bridge when we didn't if it doesn't work out. But so it's not yet resolved, but it's on the way to being resolved, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. It's that, you know, Jamie has given confidence, like there is no, both parties are working to resolve it. Like there's no blocker. It's not really an issue to be resolved. It's more like just work to be done.
Okay.
So that work is proceeding.
So just to be clear, so it's likely they will transfer the trademark over because it's the actual name of the project we put in the thing we're voting on, right? That's the thing that's trademarked.
Yes, that's what they're planning to do.
Good.
Yeah. I think there's that, and they're also trying to go through like logos and things. Whether or not they, anyway. I'm leaving that up to Jamie. Jane, when members do this, you know, Jamie kind of does it in private. It's standard Oasis policy. They don't, you know, they work through these things in private with the entity. They don't.
No, that works for me. As long as what's contributed doesn't end up going to the Oasis board to go through what we had to go through for 7 years with Styx. As long as that doesn't happen, I'm happy.
Yeah. So anyone have any questions on that project before we hand to Duncan? Okay. Duncan, take it away with your other business.
Okay, so as you're all aware, CASP, the cybersecurity automation subproject of the OCA, is fairly new. It's been in process for quite a long time, though, is becoming a project, and it's taking over the work of something that used to be called the Cybersecurity Automation Workshop, which tied together a lot of cybersecurity standards and open source project and commercial projects that used Oasis standards to sort of all talk to each other. If you'll recall, the sort of driving force for it was we were hoping to have another workshop / hackathon / inner working / plugfest associated with the upcoming CISA SBOMorama, which CISA kept putting off. They quasi announced at RSA. They were supposed to actually officially announce it, but I haven't seen it yet in the Federal Register. But they've now picked a date and a place for the SBOMorama, and it's in Southern California on June 14th. And CASP has sort of always had the goal of trying to be just prior to that, have a cybersecurity automation workshop that ties together as much of our stuff as we can in as wide a number of use cases as we can, but at least including the SBOM and software transparency related use cases, or where those fit into all the existing ransomware and comply to connect and other use cases that we use. And so that now that, even though it's not official, it's supposed to be official any day now. They finally picked a date in place. We are trying, the CASP subproject is trying to arrange to basically have a CASP hybrid event for those attending the SBOMorama physically in the same location. If we can pull it off, we're still trying to work that. And if we can't pull it off in the same location, at least related, but also having it be hybrid so that everybody who can't make it can still attend. But the intent is so that the next day on June 14th at the SBOMorama, which will probably have quite a large number of people at it. The most recent one had 150 people at it, and that was before all these edicts came out that the federal government said it's not going to buy anything unless you do this stuff. So it could, it could be 300 people that are at it. We'd really like to present to that group as part of an awareness and adoption of the OCA and of CASP, the hey, we just put all the stuff together and you did it for these use cases that you guys care about yesterday. On the 14th, we'd say, hey, we just made it work on the 13th. We fully recognize that, like other previous times that we've done this, there might be a certain amount of hand waving. We would like to get as much actual physical stuff, talking to other physical stuff, using our interfaces of particularly of OCA projects, but of other related OASIS standards as well, and even non-OASIS standards. Basically anything to do with cybersecurity automation we'd like to do. So this is partly a awareness and adoption for the rest of you, and partly a pitch, particularly to the new people who haven't done this before, to get your stuff included in what we're doing. Your stuff, both OCA project wise, in the case of, say, picking on OXA, because there's some definite tie-in between these things, but also from your company's viewpoint of, resources that, hopefully have a human, hopefully physically show up, but if not yet, at least virtually show up. But ideally also providing some what we call sweat equity, i.e., hey, yeah, well, you can hook to our box and we have this standard interface, and or you can't exactly hook to our box because we don't actually have the standard interface yet, but we can do what we call a hand waving icon. We can at least show you how we fit in this use case, and we're in the process of working on the interface that the sticks interface or the stick shifter interface or the Kestrel interface, the OpenC2 interface, or the whatever pace related object or whatever that we would like to do. And in particularly in the OXA's case, I know you got view graphs that show stuff. If nothing else, show the view graphs, and we do some hand waving. So this is one to let you all aware that it's not rock solid yet, because even the SBOM-RAMA isn't rock solid yet, but it's getting to be pretty solid. So we'd really like to have that event the day before. And where it relates to some of the other stuff that Jane brought up is the other potential CASP related workshops like this, is we might try and have one over on the other side of the pond related to borderless cyber. And Jane mentioned, maybe a demo at Black Hat. We might have some small, variant or large variant, depending on how much people want to get into this at Black Hat. So we sort of went from we haven't done this for a year and a half. We were trying to do it twice a year for several years. We usually made it at least once a year. Then COVID hit and we went into, don't do anything for a while. Now we have at least 3 potential times we might do it coming up in 2023, with the nearest one being not that far away with respect to this Southern California thing. And so we're going to do what we can do at each of these, and we'd like as much help as we can. And it is a case to sort of show off all our stuff and how it's actually providing real value. Jason.
Okay, so that was a lot. There's a lot of nuggets in there. So a couple of questions I'd have, right? So first question,
There's only a couple, you're doing good, but go ahead.
Yeah. So first question would be, how would one of us or other OCA, participants become aware and get involved in these CASP goings on, right? Like how is there?
So CASP has a meeting every other Monday. It's on the CASP subproject calendar.
Okay.
We had an initial kickoff a while ago, and then we went through a doodle poll to pick the best time that everybody could make. We ended up with hey, we got people literally all around the world. We got Australia, we got Europe, we got North America. So it was challenging, to say the least. But we ended up with it's an every other week meeting, but it's really 2 once a month meetings, because they're both on Mondays, but there are 2 different times, because we literally couldn't find a time we could get everybody who wanted to participate that was already involved. So you can look, if you look at the CASP calendar and just, I guess we had one this previous Monday, so it'll be a week from Monday. Well, the next one, you'll look and you just pick that time. Don't assume it's that time every other week, because if you notice, one of them's, one is in the morning, one of them's later. I don't even remember the times now. But we even did get Vaughn from Australia on the one that wasn't at a good time for him, but he came in anyway in the middle of his night. But the best way to get involved is to get on the CASP mailing list. There is a CASP GitHub. It's all in the much more nebulous state than it should be. We all agreed to, yes, we'll all go work on it and start putting our stuff in there at our meeting last Monday. I haven't done that yet, so I don't know if anyone else has. Next question.
Okay, I'll try to make sure I subscribe to that. So, long story short, subscribe. So I guess what I'm trying to highlight, not only for myself, but maybe for others, is just because you're on the PGB doesn't mean you're getting all of this information about CASP. So you have to go and subscribe to that list if you're interested in becoming aware and getting involved in, these meetups and organizations. So I'm going to make sure I do that for myself, because I wasn't totally aware that all this was going on. So it's really exciting. So I guess that was actually my main question, and I don't really, I feel like I have to go and educate myself before I ask other uninformed questions. Because I was kind of curious about, you know, this whole Southern California and when it'll be and.
Yeah, and I wish I could give you more, but like I said, it's CISA informally announced it at RSA. They were supposed to formally announce it, and they haven't actually put out the Federal Register thing yet, which last week they said would come out last week, and I still haven't seen it. So,
If
but
you,
as soon as we get it, we'll
this
put it out.
something where, is this something where you're going to be looking for a venue or something where?
Well,
you
we might be, what we're trying, okay, so here's what I know. And well, we're being recorded, but I'll say it anyway. I probably shouldn't. So CISA, the
can
way,
hold it until the recording, we don't have to.
well, it's all right, I'll say. So CISA has a arrangement contract, I'm not sure how they did it, whatever, with the Rochester Institute of Technology, RIT, to assist in the setting up and running of this. And the RIT people who are actually running it at whichever, it's UCLA or USC, and I always confuse the two, and I know that's a horrible two to confuse because they're, you know, rivals, but it's at a particular, they already have the venue, they are for the SBOM-orama. I now have the contact for the RIT professor who's running the SBOM-orama, and it's my action item to get a hold of him and see if I can pull off literally getting their facility, you know, for the day before. And the hope would be yes, and then the hope would be not only would we have a facility, we'd also have, we might be able to suck some of the however many hundreds of people are going to SBOM-orama and to come into our thing early. If that doesn't work, we'll be looking for a venue.
I'm kind of confused. So Rochester, RIT isn't in California.
No, RIT's in Rochester, New York. That
Yeah.
got me
Sorry,
too.
I got thrown for a loop.
CISA put out a bid for, hey, schools, come help me with stuff, and RIT won it, and RIT's choosing to run it at a different school. Again,
Okay.
as much as I know, I was
Oh,
just.
so they're running it in, so RIT is running it in UCLA, is that what you're saying?
Right, UCLA or USC. I forget which school it was, and I didn't write it down, and I always confused them.
Okay, well, that's interesting. I will go and educate myself, and I'm really interested, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and at the CAST, and a little bit more detail if people care, at the CAST meeting last week, there was definite interest from there has been a lot of interworking going on between Kestrel and StickShifter and OpenC2 associated with the ransomware use case. At the meeting last week, the IOB crowd agreed to sort of enhance the use case to include their stuff, and I forget even who the other one that was going to enhance the use case then. So we're sort of we're getting a collection of related activities that look like we'll be actually able to do, I'll say, real demos of an actual real, you know, benefit to the customer. And we're getting into, you know, detailed arguments like, oh yeah, but we don't have the threat data for this. And I'm like, okay, we can wave our hands on that one step because we got the threat data for 3 other ones or whatever. But so yeah, so it's looking pretty good. I mean, we have been sort of planning to do this for a while now, but now that we put a stake in the ground and it's only a little over a month away, people are starting to scramble.
Any other questions for Duncan on the CASP or any of these upcoming possible meetups? No, I suspect others are like me and we're not aware and are gonna have to go and read the mailing list.
I wish the stupid SBOM-orama thing would come out so we can then ripple everything from it. But we're going ahead like it's coming out and the date's now frozen. So
all right. Well, I mean, it's all good. This is I feel like there's so much momentum in the OCA starting that it's almost like starting to become a little bit overwhelming, but in a good way. So that's good. All right. Those are all the agenda items I had today. So Duncan had some open business. Does anybody else have any other unrecorded open business to discuss? If not, we can give 15 minutes back. All right, did you want to stop the recording?